Okay, so to start off, you need to have this note sheet in front of you. So the sheet that you got in class, it says Rule 9 on the top. It just was a book I got it from, and it happened to be Rule 9. It doesn't matter. And it has some examples here. So make sure you have that in front of you. And if you don't, pause this video, go get it, bring it back, have a pencil with you too, because we're going to look at some stuff and underline some things, and then you'll be ready to do your homework. So I'm going to grab my marker, and I suggest the things I underline and notes I put in, you should do that too on your note sheet that you have in front of you now too. So here we go. So, for example, let's look at the sentence, John and I play soccer. Okay, often a lot of you say that, you and your friend played a sport on the weekend, and you put that into your paragraphs. So we need to look at, okay, so when you're putting these people in with your sentences, when you and someone else do something, the first rule that you need to remember is we're very polite in English, always polite. We're very polite language, so we always put the other person first in your sentence. So it's not I and John played soccer or me and John play soccer. That would put in you first. Here it puts the other person first. So Jim and I played soccer. Okay? So you always put the other person first. Another example, the teacher and I worked the problem together. Notice it doesn't say me and the teacher work the problem together. That would be putting you first. Note, in English, the grammar rule is you put the other person first. Okay? So to help us remember, why don't we put a note saying, always polite. That's helped me remember that, because I know, oh, we have to be polite, we put the other person first. Okay? So that's the first rule, always put the others first. So for example, my cousins and I went to Canada's Wonderland over the weekend. It wouldn't be me and my cousins went to Canada's Wonderland. You put your cousins first. My cousins and I went to Canada's Wonderland. Okay? The next rule is to know, could you use me or I? So let's underline that. That's the second half of this sheet. It talks about that. Okay, and how do you know? Is it me and my cousin, or my cousins and me went to Canada's Wonderland, or my cousins and I? And most of them, because a lot of you spoke English as your first language, you know which one sounds right. But let me give you the rule, because sometimes you'll come across ones that you don't know. Which one sounds right? They both could sound right. So what do? The rule with this is when you're doing that, take away the other person, and whatever it works without the other person is the one that you would use. So let me explain. For example, Jim and I play soccer. So let's go to the top and we'll use that's a really good simple example. Okay, let's take out Jim and the and. Would you say I play soccer or me play soccer? Well, obviously you'd say I play soccer. Me play soccer is not correct English. So that means I is there. Then you can put the other person back in. So it's Jim and I play soccer, not Jim and me. Okay, let's look at another one. Give it to Frank and me. Okay, well, let's take away the Frank and say, should we give it to Frank and I, or give it to Frank and me? Well, you take away the to Frank, or take away the Frank part, would you say give it to I? No, that wouldn't make sense. You would say give it to me. And so that means that when you're putting Frank back in, give it to Frank and me, you wouldn't say give it to Frank and I, because without Frank, that wouldn't make sense. So that means with Frank back in the sentence, it's still the same. Give it to Frank and me. Okay? So this does not make sense. This one does. So let's cross this one out. Give it to I. You wouldn't say that. You would say give it to me. So let's circle that one. Okay? Me play soccer. We went through that one. That doesn't make sense. I play soccer makes sense. So that means Jim and I play soccer. So to know, you cover it up. Okay, take away the other person. They should be at the front, because remember, we're always being polite. So they're the beginning of the sentence. Take it away, like cover your hand over it. I play soccer, that makes sense. Okay, taking away Jim and me, you would never say me play soccer if you take away the Jim part. So take away the other person, whatever makes sense with just you in the sentence, is what you do when you add other people in as well. Okay, excellent. Now I'm just going to go over and flip my sheet to the next one. So if you flip the sheet over, now you see that this is where your homework is. So let's do the first example together. Helping you out, I've even given you the first one. So what it says, the instructions, remember always read the instructions first. Write a sentence for each of the topics below. Use either I or me in each sentence. So this helps you practice for the rules. So don't do these without practice. They need to have I or me, or else you're not practicing the rule of the week. And there's no point to this. So it says, you and your friends went to see the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay, so you're talking about, write a sentence that has I or me in it, and talking about you and your friends going to the Toronto Blue Jays. Well, first thing, you always put the other person first. So you say my friends, because that's who the other people are. So my friends, and it would it be I went to the Toronto Blue Jays, or me went to the Toronto Blue Jays? It would be I. So, and I went to see the, remember it's the official name of a team, so it's capitalized, Toronto Blue Jays, period. Well, let's go back and check. I'll take away my friends and just say I went to see the Toronto Blue Jays. Yes, that makes sense. Put my friends back in first. My friends and I went to see the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's what you need to do. You need to put a sentence with I or me in it and the other people, and I always tell you who the other people are and the situation you're in, and write a sentence with that. Okay? You and your family went out for dinner, so you put whoever you went with, I or me went out for dinner. And for the others, there are 6 here. Here's a tip. Okay, for your quiz on Friday, 2 of the biggest marks will be that I'm going to ask you what are the 2 rules we use when using I or me in a sentence. Okay, and you'll know one of the rules is put the other people first, or other person first. The second rule is take away the other person, and whatever fits I or me in the sentence is what would work with the other person in it too. So the 2 rules we just went through. Okay, so just to clarify, rule number 1 is here, name yourself last, or put the other people first. And rule number 2 is to hear if you've used I or me, leave the other person out, which one would you say? So those are 2 marks on your quiz. I'm going to ask you, what are the 2 rules for using I or me? And then the other marks will be, I'll give you a sentence with I or me in it, just like your homework, and maybe it'll be either correct or incorrect, and you'll tell me, is it written correctly or not? And if it's not written correctly, you're going to rewrite it. And if it is written correctly, you would just put correct. And then you'll get marks either way for that. Okay, so there's exactly what's going to be on the quiz. You have homework to do now. If you have other questions, bring them to class or rewatch part of this video, whatever you need to understand. Thanks.